Do you struggle with the emotions of anger? Anger is energized by this idea that somebody owes someone. And this debt-to-debtor relationship determines how your anger lives out in your life. Has anger trapped you to stop you from living your best life? Anger says, you owe me. Why? Because you are the one that was responsible for why am I upset. And so this anger of this debt needs to be paid somehow. And so do you struggle with anger? I'm at Ihei's hardware store. Now this store is not just any hardware store. It's also a museum. The slogan for this place says, legends live here. Many motorcycle lovers from all over New Zealand, some from overseas, come and visit this place. And once a year they come for their hunger and their thirst for speed. When it comes with speed, it reminds me of our anger, of our temper. Here's a couple of questions I want to ask you. When was the last time you were angry? And who were you angry with? And what were you angry about? If you show me an angry person, I will show you a hurt person. I guarantee you the reason why they are upset, because something terrible has happened to them. And this is the reason why we say, anger says, you owe me. My boy Scott, he's also a great friend of mine. He was born and bred in Invercargill, now living in Australia. He shared with me a story because he is also a lover of bikes just like these ones. There was a time where he ordered a part, and because it is really important for someone who builds bikes that you gotta have all the parts that you need. And so he searched everywhere in Australia to look for this particular part. But the problem was there was no part of this can be found in Australia, which really made him upset because he wanted to build this bike of his so that he can ride it as soon as possible. And so what he did was he ordered some parts overseas from the States. As most of you bike lovers would know, when it comes to parts, especially when you're getting it from overseas, it could take forever. So this replacement part took 2.5 months for it to arrive. While he was waiting, he started to realize he was getting a bit cranky, upset, started making phone calls because it was meant to come in weeks. And so when months went past, he started to realize, I need this part. I want this part here right now. And they promise that they will get this part as soon as possible within weeks. So when you pay for postage, you pay good money to get it here as soon as possible, especially when it comes to parts. And hardware stores like this, when there is a high demand, they rely on the middleman to meet their needs and to come through. And so Scott was experiencing this, and he was getting so frustrated with this part. When the part arrived, he needed to build this bike as soon as possible. And because it was a delay for him, and lovers of bike can only understand this, you don't build a bike and wait for 3 months. You build it where time is no friend of yours. You just build, build, build. But this particular time, he needed to finish this bike. When you're just a part away of putting this together, he needed to go to work at night. As a security guard, you needed to be on time. And so in the evening, before he had dinner, he needed this part to be put together. He was so anxious, so frustrated because of the delay. And once he put this part together, he was just a night's blink away from finishing before he has his dinner to go to work. And finally, the bike was built. When he hopped on his bike and turned it on, and when he rode down the street, within seconds, all the frustrations, all the stress just went away for somebody behind him to blow away and get lost in the wind. Anger is very much like a bike. And sometimes it's also a way to get rid of the stress and the anger, just as Scott did. So with anger, when we don't get what we want, this is a very crucial idea that you must understand about anger. Some of you might be asking, well, my anger is not based on what I want. More or less, most of the time when we don't get what we want or when something doesn't go our way, that idea has a huge part of why we get upset or angry. And so Scott had the same similar cause, was that he didn't get what he wanted on time as they promised. Of course, you can be cranky about it. What we want includes what we deserve. I mean, who doesn't want what they deserve? And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot there which causes us to feel upset and angry. Think about the last time you were angry. And most likely the reason why is because it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. And it's because you deserve it. Think about a time when you were really angry. Now, how did you deal with that anger? So isn't it true that the entire idea is that simple idea of you deserve it and I need it and that's what I want? You wanted something, but it didn't go your way. That's the heart of the triggers of where it comes from. And it's really important to know and backtrack what caused it, what triggered it. And it's more likely that very simple idea is what we wanted didn't go the way we planned or desired. Just like Scott, the plan didn't go according to what he wanted to happen for his bike. Here is a simple quote from an unknown author that best describes this idea. A wise man was asked, "What is anger?" He gave a beautiful answer. It is a punishment that we give ourselves for someone else's mistake. I'm sitting inside a replica of a 1920 Indian Scout motorcycle, custom built and ridden by Herbert Bert James Monroe. Bert Monroe is a motorcycle racer. He was famous for the record under 1000cc. This happened over 53 years ago this month. This record still stands today as the fastest Indian Scout motorcycle in the world and later became a Hollywood film. Now, Bert Monroe is Invercargill's hero. My kids love reading and watching his film because they now live in Invercargill. It just gives them a sense of knowing that if someone like Bert Monroe, who is a local, who has been a huge inspiration to the city, my kids have bought into the idea that anything is possible. And so Bert Monroe is not only an icon and also famous, but he also has a sense of humor. And so his sense of humor, if you were to watch the film, you will realize the spirit of Invercargill. They love speed. They love their bikes. They love their high-powered motors. And so once a year they will have this challenge. It's called the Bert Monroe Challenge. And so bikers from all over New Zealand and some from overseas will come all the way down from the top of New Zealand, ride their bikes all the way to the bottom of the world, which is Invercargill, which is the end of New Zealand. And so this is where they will meet and they will race the famous Oreti Beach, where Bert Monroe used to ride his bikes, test his bikes so that he would see if his bike is good enough for Bonneville once again. And so Bert Monroe, not only he was a funny type of a guy, but when he used to get upset, when he used to make his own parts for his bikes and his pistons, when they would give way, he would offer them on a shelf. And this is what he would say out of his sense of humor, which reflects best about Invercargill. This is offerings to the gods. Bert Monroe's top speed is very much like our tempers. Some of us have fast tempers, quick tempers, and some of us have smaller tempers. But when we think about anger, we will realize that there are some things and some questions I want to share with you will help you to realize if you can recognize people who struggle with this. Some have said these things: you have taken my reputation, you have stole my family, you have robbed me of my marriage, you have taken the best years of my life, you have not given me the affection, you should have been there for me. Time was not spent enough with me. And so all of these things, do you recognize them? Do they sound familiar to you of someone who feels that they need to be owed? A debt needs to be paid to them. That's why we say anger says, you owe me. And so if this sounds like you, or know of someone who is very much like this, let me share you some wisdom and some support and help from the Bible. Listen to what King Solomon says in the book of Proverbs 29 and verses 22. People with quick tempers cause a lot of quarreling and trouble. One of the things about this enemy of the heart of anger is not a terrible thing. It's not a bad thing altogether. Anger is a natural emotion. It's part of being human. But the difference with anger is that it depends on how you respond to the temper or the anger that you have, or how you manage it. This is where the determination and the difference is in how you deal with life. And so for me, I like a good laugh, and I'm a happy-go-lucky type of person, and go hard or go home type of a dude. And so how I understand anger, and I encourage you to use your creativity on how you can manage your anger without so intense about it. So I see anger as a mountain, and I call this the hill. Now, the hill is a hill that I am used to. When I get angry, so between me and my wife is very, very slow to anger. Myself, yes, my temper is as quick as anything. But the difference and the special thing about that is that it comes down just as quick or even faster. You won't even know it came. And sometimes I won't even know it came and went. Why? This mountain of anger that I see in my anger is this. I know how to get to the top of the mountain. Now, when I was at the top of the mountain, I did not know how to come down. I grew up as an angry young person, not understanding why certain things happen in my life. And I'm sure you have children, and I'm sure you growing up as a teen or a young adult trying to find your way or identify who you are. And so being angry about the world is a very normal thing. Now, this mountain, when I was at the top, I realized all the things I was angry lived at the top, and I found it difficult to come down. And so the longer I stayed up there, the longer I was upset and angry with whatever. But later in life, I realized I can't be angry all the time. And as I grew older, I realized I needed to manage this temper of mine. And so I backtrack and try to find out how I even got there in the first place. And so I made my way down through the years as I learned. I slipped. There were times where temperatures changed. It got cold up there, and the environment started to change. But when I finally made it back down to the bottom of the hill, I realized I knew how fast or the quickest way to get to the top. And when I was in the valley, when something upset me or things didn't go my way, I would go out there as quick as possible. I love the gym and I love being fit. I could run up there so fast, but I knew the way back down, which is easier for me to manage my anger, and I knew how to get back down just as quick. I would run it down because gravity is going with me. And so I was rolling with resistance with my temper and anger. And so next time when I get upset, yes, will I get angry? Of course, because I'm human, that usually happens. And so I will run it up the hill. Now with my wife, it's very different. My wife, it takes a lot. I mean, it takes so much to upset her. She is a valley girl. She's not interested in climbing mountains. And so she enjoys the good life. And so when it comes to upsetting her, now if I upset her when she is angry, boy, she is very angry. And so it takes her a while to get up there. Why? Because it is not part of her life. She's not used to going up there. And so it takes her a while to get up there. So I would call her a, slow to anger and quick to listen type of person. And so when she climbs this mountain, it does take a while for her to get up there. But when she does get up there, she is very annoyed because she does not understand or know what it's like. So the environment up top of the hill is nothing new. It's new to her. And so for her to come back down, it will take ages. That's how I know why it takes her a while to get over it sometimes. You might have a partner or a wife or a friend when they're upset, it will take days or even weeks. And you wonder why they're angry for months or years. And you're probably angry with someone for so many years and you're on top of that mountain and you don't know how to get down. And so I would climb that mountain as quick as possible because I know this mountain so well. And I would tell my wife, I am sorry. And then I will show you, honey, because I know this track so well, I know how to get up here quickly and I know how to get back down. This is the quickest way to get down. And you know what I say to her? I say, I am sorry. And this is the way to get down. But it's up to her whether she wants to stay up there. Sometimes she likes to stay up there because she wants me to feel cold with her up in the mountain. And I'm saying, honey, I'm so sorry. Let's go down. I know the quickest way to get down. But the way you went down there last time, which took you so long to get down there, was very dangerous. And sometimes our relationship with our partners or friends or families, we climb down the wrong way. We may not know how to get down properly. And so I took her down and humbled myself down to the valley, and my wife would say, I'm sorry too. And so it's amazing how the mountains that we are on, and you will start to realize the people that you are angry with are more likely with you on top of the mountain. You can't stop thinking about them. They're always going to be on top of the mountain, but you got to come down with them. You got to take them down. If you know someone in the valley that's climbed this mountain and you were responsible for that, you may need to go up to that mountain and get them down. And so take them down with you. So a journey of getting rid of our anger has a lot to do with relationship. Are you still on top of this mountain? Or are you in the valley? Or are you halfway up or halfway back down? Where are you in the spectrum of this mountain? One of many moments that I have shared this story about me and my wife, this quote expresses this really well, that me and my wife laugh at, which is really true. From an unknown author says, apologizing doesn't always mean you're wrong and the other person is right. It means you value your relationship more than your ego. In one of Burt Munro's earlier races in Bonneville, USA, his bike had issues. It was known to wobble, shake, and overheat. In one of the top speeds he made, that was the issue that came about. You notice that the shape of his bike was like a rocket shape. And because this rocket shape was confined when he was in there, the motor was right in between his legs. And so when it would overheat, it would burn his leg. And that made it difficult for him to hit top speed and continue on through the race. And so the motor right here is a great example of what it actually would have looked like. And so his leg would have been right there. I wouldn't be surprised as if it was just touching it. And the more you are confined like a bullet, you can go at top speed with this design. And so these were some of the issues that we have with our anger. And sometimes our anger burns us and it leaves us wobbling in life. And we shake at times, just like Burt Munro's Indian Scout. Do you have that same experience? You could be confined in a space so tight that the anger boils within you and it starts to burn. And so at top speed, what is life like with you? Just like Bert Monroe. Is your life with anger like top speed? That you can't control it? It wobbles, it shakes. And if this sounds like you, what is a remedy of this? How did Bert Monroe deal with the issue? What Bert did was, he grabbed a cloth, an anti-heating cloth, or something that he could find, and he tied it around his leg where it was burning. And so that when he was at top speed, there was something between his leg and the heat. We need something like that. And so he was able to jump into his bike again and go at top speed. And so he went there more than once at Bonneville. And so he made records after records after records. And so he found a solution to the problem. Yes, it's not easy, but it is possible and it can be managed. If you find something, what is that wrapping around your leg? What is that thing that you need in between your temper and yourself? The Bible also has something of this wrapping that Bert Monroe had, this cloth between the heated motor and his leg. This verse talks about how we deal with our anger. When we deal with our anger, one of the things that Paul, who wrote the book of Ephesians, he wrote so many letters to his visitations to different cities and towns, and he wrote a specific letter to the Ephesians of the day and spoke to them how anger is not a bad thing, but it's only a terrible thing when you manage it differently or the wrong way. He also mentioned that do not sin when you are angry. What does that actually mean? And so when we are upset, and so there was a time when somebody upset me, and I realized I was tempted to do something because I felt I had the right to do something wrong. The reason why I did this is because of anger. It's almost like anger is a particular or an outward person. And so when you have the excuse that because I was angry, I'm going to do something wrong. Or usually when we do something wrong, it hurts somebody. But not realizing when somebody finally comes to us, and it's usually a police officer and comes and say, why did you do that? That's going to get you or throw you into prison. We would say these things because I was angry. That's the reason why we did what we did. And so you've heard stories, or you may know someone in your family that may have used anger as the reason why we sin, or the reason why we do wrong. And so this letter is a very important letter, and how you can actually be okay that it's okay to be angry, but don't do the wrong thing. I know it's difficult when you are upset or in the midst of the heat or on top of your mountain. And so it is very difficult. And so there are ways that the Bible teaches us on how not to sin when we are angry. And so hear what Paul actually says and what he wrote to the Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 4 and verses 26. Don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. So these are some of the resolutions that Bert Monroe used to solve the issue, and that's why he was able to control the speed without wobbling, shaking, and overheating. Otherwise, the heat gets going, you have resentment, your emotion starts to play, it controls how you work, it affects your family, your children, and the more you hold on to the heat of your day, it will explode. And so you must ask the question, how long am I going to hold this anger? And it's always usually with another person. And so, what can you do to deal with your anger? Here are 4-step process on how you can deal or manage your anger. Identify who you're angry with, because your anger is really with another human being. Identify who it is, name them. It doesn't matter who it is or how long ago it was. When you find out who it is, then you know the next step. The next step is determine what exactly they owe you. Anger says, you owe me. Determine what they owe you, then you know what the next step is. The third is cancel the debt. Because you are already angry, you can't go back unless they pay you. But paying you back would not help. The only way is to cancel the debt. The remedy of anger is forgiveness. And the fourth one is, do not let your anger rise again. The debt has already been paid, and God has already forgiven you and forgiven those who owe you. Let me pray for you. Father in heaven, thank you so much, Lord, for your forgiveness. And you forgive us and forgive those who have wronged us, who have hurt us, so that we can be free. Thank you, Lord, for your forgiveness. Thank you for giving us the management of anger. In Jesus' name, amen.